Hello everyone, it's Lennon, and today I'm doing something really exciting. I have been, okay? I will say I have been doing something really exciting. Uh, for a while now, I have been wanting to do a tarot grimoire. It's kind of different than a tarot journal, which I do a lot. I have a lot of notebooks devoted to my tarot practice, whether it be definitions or keywords or just a journal in general about the spreads that I do or the spreads that I like. And never anything like a grimoire that I could potentially pass down to one of my children that are interested in the craft, interested in the tarot practice. Nothing like that had some of like my core knowledge of the tarot. And I know that we can get that from books, and we can get that from, like, I could pass down some of my tarot books and some of my tarot journals that have some of those kinds of things in there. But for the purpose of just like a grimoire, I wanted this to be solely what I believe the tarot means to me. And this whole thing came about when I was kind of watching some videos and reading some articles on how to organize your book of shadows, because I had, I don't know, it's been a few years ago, I bought one of those massive leather bound book of shadows, and I haven't done anything with it. I'm just terrified of it, to almost to the extent where it feels like I'm never going to actually use it. And I know that's kind of sad. And so I got this idea from those videos, how to organize and everything. So what I had done was I was on Amazon and I was looking up like just small journals. As you can see, this is about the size of the palm of, my hand. And I wanted something small, something compact, that it wouldn't be this big tome. It didn't have to be. And I ended up finding this. I'll leave the link for this particular one below. It's on Amazon. I think I only paid like $9 for it, which was really cheap for one of these types of journals. But it is really small, and some of the stamping on the sides is kind of wonky, and it's not really well put together, I'll say. The stitching is pretty good, so I was satisfied enough with the stitching. But what drew me to this particular one, with, in terms of it being my tarot grimoire, it said the journey. And for me, that, of course, that links to the Fool's Journey. And then there was a lemniscate on it, which I thought, how perfect is that? And then, of course, these footprints goes on the journey. I mean, it doesn't have a thing to do with tarot, but anyway. So on the description of this, it said it had 200 pages. And when I bought it, and while waiting on it to come in, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be really severe with this. This will help me to eradicate some of the fears I have with my actual book, my big tome book of shadows. And that's kind of where my mind was going with this, is that if I'm able to do this very severe and do it in a way that I really, really want and get the whole thing done, then the Book of Shadows is just one step up from that. So that's kind of where my mind was. And so I'm going to explain my process without even opening this right now. It had 200 pages, and I knew that I wanted a beginning section that had tarot, just some tarot bits and bobs in it, like my journey, how I got started with tarot, some of my favorite tarot books, just devote a few pages in the beginning for like the beginning of the journey, so to speak. And then a big section in the middle of all the cards. I knew I wanted to devote at least a page to each card. And so I needed at least 78 pages for the major arcana. And then what I really wanted to do was split up the minor arcana into Ace through 10, and then another section for the courts, and divide both of those sections, suit by suit by suit by suit. What I was able to do was calculate how many pages precisely I needed in the beginning of the book, and then in the middle of the book, and then have some pages in the end, much like a tarot book, have some pages in the end, like 4 or 5 pages in the ending of this grimoire, devoted to like more tarot bits and bobs, things that I need in my craft moving forward. That type of knowledge, my favorite spreads, things like that. Maybe like a keyword chart. The keyword chart was mainly, I saw this on Pinterest. It was a keyword chart that a keyword and symbol chart. And what it was doing was, when you do a spread for like a querent or a client of yours, instead of writing King of Wands came up, for your whole spread, you can just do little symbols by the reading so that it's easier for you to keep up with what all cards were pulled, especially if it's a big spread. If you're using a big 10 card spread or something, it gets pretty arduous to write all the names of the cards down. And then, of course, how they play with other cards. So if you just used a keyword and a symbol or something, then that kind of helps the reading. Now, personally, I don't do readings for clients at this moment. I mean, I have done them in the past, but I don't do them at the moment. So that I've thought about whether or not to put it in the grimoire, but because this is a grimoire and because this is something that I was potentially going to pass down, what if one of my children really got into the practice of tarot and decided to actually become a tarot reader? Then that would help them. And I thought that knowledge versus, I did change some of the symbols because to match better how I believe some of the cards look at their base level, I guess you could say. And so I thought by changing some of the symbols, it would become more mine. And then therefore, if the tarot was something that, whoever gets this book or this grimoire, it would be, whoever got it, it would benefit them as well. And, it's totally open. Tarot is totally open to interpretation, in my opinion, which means that if they were to become tarot readers, whoever were to get this grimoire, they can change whatever they want. They can add things to this. It just was something more than a notebook, more than a tarot journal that I have, like my day-to-day, something that cements all of my core knowledge into one little book. And so, like I said, I decided to devote 10 pages in the beginning. A title page. I'm big on title pages. I like the aesthetic of like ancient illuminated manuscripts. I love that type of look, like those colorful pages that have the text and the pictures and the really cool fonts. I loved that type of aesthetic. So I wanted title pages, a little info into my start, favorite decks, favorite cards, maybe my favorite cards. I think I decided to eradicate that little thing. Drawings, the beauty aspect, because this is a grimoire, I did want there to be some like tarot related clip art, if you will, in this to kind of zhuzh up the beauty aspect of it. And so that, that was something I really wanted. And then in the middle, of course, was a page devoted to each tarot card, including on the page of the tarot card, my meaning, the divinatory meaning, maybe like some astrology, the elements, associated with the card, a distinct separation between the major and the minor arcana. I really wanted that. So like I said, I had divided the major arcana and then went suit by suit. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And then the end was, like I said, bits and bobs, tarot charts that would help if you were to become a professional tarot reader, keywords maybe, favorite spreads, things like that. So that's kind of where my head was at the end. And I devoted 10 pages to the end. And the math ended up working so well when you really try to be severe on the math. And I just kind of use this as like a math thing where I have 200 pages. I know I want the very first page and the very last page to be blank, just like in a regular book, which that page would probably be devoted to copyright, but I wanted it blank for aesthetic purposes. And so that worked out too. Let's open up and see. I love this little clip. I'm going to have to weld a little bit of this because, like I said, this is kind of cheap and cheaply made. But because after I make this and after I'm done with it, it's just going to be something to sit on my shelf and pass down. It's not necessarily going to be something that I'll look at every day. But I am going to have to because it's kind of wobbly. I'm gonna have to fix that. I do like the stamping, even though it's kind of wonky in some places. Now, what I had learned is, you can see all these tissue papers. What I learned in using this specific paper that comes in these journals and like these leather bound journals, it's really thin, homemade like paper. And so when you use markers, it bleeds through. And then when you use Sharpies, it bleeds through. So I realized that the only thing, if I wanted to put color on here, I couldn't use ink. I thought about using watercolors, but I tested a page in another journal that's a lot like this, and it bled through as well. And it just became, like the paper became warped. Now that could have a beautiful effect if that's the effect you want, but I didn't want that effect. I didn't want it to be all warped, and it changes the integrity of the paper too. So it's easier to rip when you're in the throes of painting. So I decided to use color pencils. Another thing that happens with color pencils is because it's a powder pigment, it leaks, that the color can leak onto the mirrored page. So the color that I would put on this page can put some powder essence on the opposite page, and I didn't like that. So I went through the whole process of coloring some of these and then realizing that it would rub off on the other page, and I had to erase it with like a gum eraser, which worked out. But then I did have to put tissue paper in it. And what I did was I put really heavy books on top of it, and whatever powder pigment would have transferred, it would get on the tissue paper. And then I can take it out after several days of it being under those heavy books. So I did learn that little trick. Also, I've learned that when I do certain color pencil work that I've done in the past, because I am a creator, I also learned that you can use this stuff called clear matte acrylic finish. And it's basically like a varnish of sorts for acrylic paintings. But you could potentially hold the book open once it's completely done and spray it with that acrylic matte finish, and it will not allow for any of those other pigments to transfer. It just holds all that pigment into the page. But as I was going to color almost every page of this, I was like, oh, that's a lot of work. So now I'm going to put a clip here of how I started, what the middle looked like before I colored it, how I kind of divided out the pages, I guess you could say. So I'll put that here for you to look at. I was so proud of myself for being severe with where all the sections went. And I used Post-it notes at the very beginning because I didn't want to have to mark on all the pages, and then have to erase everything. So I did use pencil, like a mechanical pencil. I love using mechanical pencils when I have to have like really fine lines. So I used a mechanical pencil to do most of the outlines of the letters. And then what I did was I used that gum eraser to erase most of the pencil marks and went over all of that with color pencil. And I used this kind of Gothic font, which is like my favorite font to use. I know sometimes it can be hard to read, but I love it. And it does put me in that mindset that, this is an illuminated manuscript, even though I'm, for the most part, for the core of what I'm going to write in here, it's just going to be my pen marks, like my own handwriting. But I thought that for the purpose of this, it would look okay. And so what I did was I started out with, like I said, one blank paper at the beginning, just something that's going to stay blank. And I don't know if you'll be able to see here, but there is some marks here from before I put the tissue paper down. But it just says Tarot Grimoire, and then there's my name. Now, I have a pretty unique name, so whoever gets this journal will know who I am, just because I'm Lennon. I don't have to put my first and last name. And some basic clip art. Just get some like free clip art images online, and then I just kind of freehand drew them in here. That really worked out. Now, I did want to put just kind of like a Tarot Grimoire, I wanted to put a proclamation, almost like a spell that tells the reader that like how magical this book is. I put, this book is an aid in my tarot journey. This knowledge lies at the core. The journey will continue. Basically, I wanted something to say that this is my core knowledge. Like I'm going to be constantly growing and learning, and that's what tarot is. And I did a stack of cards, and like you can see the Tower and the Lover's card. I just doodled, and I really like the primitiveness of the drawings. I didn't want to get too severe on myself with the clip art aspect of things. Now I put favorite decks, but I meant to put tarot like systems, but my actual favorite decks are the main system decks, a Marseille, the Rider-Waite-Smith, and the Thoth. And I just freehanded what the backs of those cards would look like, and it ended up working out. I mean, whatever. The main systems are my favorite. I could have put a specific Marseille down, but I only have one Marseille deck. No, I have two. I have two Marseille decks. I use a very, very cheap Marseille. It was like $5. I love it. And it's got very clean lines and everything. And so it's not very, like, it's not like a Dodal. It's not very specific. So the one that I would have that would go with this grimoire to be passed down looks just like this. So there's nothing special about it, I'll say, even though I love it. Quick symbols. I did decide to put the symbols in the beginning instead of the end. And what I did was, just like if you were doing a reading for a client and you have a 10-card spread, and one of these, this is the major arcana mostly, what that would look like if you were just to write, you know, the moon came up with the 2 of cups, just put 2 and then a cup, and then wands, swords, and discs, and you can just put the number beside that. Or like, I think for the court cards, I would have just put like KN for knight, and then just a K for king, and then of course Q and P if for Rider-Waite. And then of course, like another, like reminds me of like a psychic reader, maybe a palm reader, like a neon sign. I thought that was really cool, even though you don't have to be a psychic to be a tarot reader. But anyway. Now, I did put numerology because what I wanted this specific page to be the core of numerology, what 1 through 10 means in terms of numerology, not tarot. And that way, whoever's reading through this book can say, okay, well, the ones mean this, how would that relate to the aces? And that, you know, so on and so forth. So just the base knowledge of numerology here. And then another title page says Tarot Bits and Bobs. Very English of me, isn't it? Tarot books. I was just going to, in my own handwriting, bullet point some of my favorite tarot books. I don't own a lot of tarot books, but some of the ones that I value in my practice, and I think there's only 3 or 4, I would just bullet point them right here with my own handwriting. And then just another like magical book, clip art. Here's where I want to talk about reversals. Again, this will be in my own handwriting, this text here, but it's just kind of a letter as to when I would actually use reversals, because I don't. Sometimes, and I mean like with decks that have been created, that they like there's an emphasis on reversals where they do have actual meanings with their reversals and it's in their guidebook, then I'll use the reversals. But just because the back is reversible doesn't necessarily mean that I'll use reversals. I tend to hardly ever use reversals. But I drew this, like, all this clip art was 2-minute drawings. Like, I was not severe on myself, just slap something on my page, and that helped me as well. But I just used an hourglass because that made me think of reversals. The zodiac. These are the 4 suits and where the zodiac lies in the suits, and that's going to help. And then of course the elements along with that, the elemental alchemical symbols here. Just bare knowledge. And these are also symbols that I have used in writing and taking notes on spreads too. The Tree of Life, I put Tree of Life, study it, and with a pomegranate because, you know, Israel Regardi, that garden of I think it's Garden of Pomegranates book. Yeah, anyway, it's become my new Tree of Life favorite. I did draw this whole thing, naming all the Sephiroths and put the tarot cards, or the tarot major arcana, on the paths. And the numbers I already know associate with the numbers of the suits. So the aces, twos, the threes, the fours, and so forth. And then I put the Sephiroth's keywords, so then that just further helps. So if they're not going to actually study it, they can just refer back to this for general knowledge. This clip art was so cool because I thought that if I could have a neon sign that looked like this hanging in an esoteric, magic shop, that would be so cool to have this as a neon sign of a tarot reader. And then here is my title page for the major arcana. I love how it looks. And I love how I decided to use purple, because I think a lot of people use purple as the spirit color and the spirit of the major arcana. I love the key. We're unlocking the tarot mysteries. And then starting here, what I did was count 78 page, going down. I'm going to put like these two, this whole thing would be the Fool card. And then this whole thing would be the Magician card. So it's technically 2 pages for each major arcana as we go along. I haven't done anything because what I think I have decided to do was use my very cheap Rider-Waite. The very first Rider-Waite deck I ever owned was like the plaid back. And it doesn't have Pixie's font on it. I thought about cutting or trimming the deck to its bare picture, as small as I could get it, and then just Mod Podging them to the page itself. But as I'm a Thoth person and I mostly read with Thoth, not that I don't love Rider-Waite, it's my mother deck, it's kind of filling me with dread to actually use the Rider-Waite, but I do not have the heart to glue a Thoth in here. But I do have the heart to glue a Rider-Waite in here, so I mean, you never know. I might end up just drawing the card or just writing the title out in the font that I've been using. But I thought it would give the Grimoire something special to have the actual card in here, because I'm going to go card by card. So all these pages I love how it kind of cracks out. I love the sound of leather-bound journals. So I've devoted all these pages to the major arcana and what that would be. And I counted it 6 times to just make sure. Another clip art. Whenever there's a title page, I usually want some sort of, kitschy clip art here. And so this is the title page for the Suit of Wands. And then what I'll do is what I did was the same thing as the major arcana. This whole 2-page spread here would be the Ace of Wands, and so on and so forth until we get to the 10s. And then I used something that would remind me of the Suit of Wands, and as Wands for me is fire, then I put a candle here, and then it says Wand Court cards, and I'll do King, Queen, Knight, and Page. And then we go right into the next suit. Another like tarot spread type of a clip art. And I did want, like I did with the wands, I wanted the bear suit picture to be involved in this as well, because I don't know if I'll have the opportunity on the actual card pages to to draw a cup. So Suit of Cups, very, very, there's a lot of white space in here, which I actually like. And here's a cauldron that I drew, and it says Cups Court Cards. So I might go back and add the plural to all of them, because I didn't do that for wands, so I might have to go back and do that just so it looks good, because it's going to look wonky if I don't do the same thing for all the suits. So here's the Cups Court Cards. This is the Suit of Swords. I primitively drew a sword here, and then again, for the suits, where it says Suit of blank, I just did a tarot spread clip art. I think that I liked that. And then for the court cards is where I drew a suit picture. Like, I'll show you. for this, I did like a feather and a bird for the court cards for swords. So that looks good. And then I did that for all of them. I did green for discs, which I love. A tarot clip art there. I have to keep these here. And then for the disc, I drew a plant. I think it was a plant or something for the court cards of the disc. Yeah, like a mother-in-law's tongue. And then here's the back. So here's the courts. So that would have been the courts of the discs. Another kind of a kitschy clip art, and then spreads. I ended up doing the math to where I would only have enough room for the spreads at the back. I ended up putting everything at the front that I wanted to have. So I did a little, a little drawing there, and then each page will be devoted to a spread that either I have made or that I have found and liked. And then, of course, if it's someone else's, I will put their name down, or maybe a website or something in like fine print down the bottom. And then this is the last page. I wanted it to be blank, just like the beginning. And then I did this very cool riffle shuffle clip art thingy. I actually ended up having to make this myself out of a picture because there's no clip art for riffle shuffling. So I was very proud of myself for ending it with a riffle shuffle, because that's how I shuffle. So I'm very proud of how this turned out, and I haven't finished it, but I just wanted to get on and show you guys what it would look like if you do a tarot grimoire, and how satisfying it is to make a book devoted to all your core knowledge, your base knowledge of the tarot, and how, yeah, you're going to continue to grow and continue to learn, and the tarot is a journey, and that's why I got this book, and that's why it called to me. So if you're interested, let me know, because maybe we can bounce ideas off of each other for future grimoires. Who knows? Who knows where this will go? I didn't want to show my final project, as this is a grimoire, so a lot of it is very private. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this ramble about my new venture with the tarot grimoire. Let me know in the comments what you thought. And I hope to see everyone again. Much love.